Self-destruct sequence activated. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, so there are a lot of movie franchises from the 80s that I actually took quite a while getting into. I mean, I tried for years trying to get into Ghostbusters, but I would get to the first scene of Bill Murray bullying an ESP, and I would just switch off. I didn't end up seeing The Breakfast Club for years, but I finally got through that and Ghostbusters. And it wasn't actually until 2 years ago that I actually fully watched Die Hard. So there are lots of movie franchises from the 80s that I took a while getting into, but after seeing them, I kind of enjoyed them. And the latest one, thanks to Christmas 2020, that I have added to my collection is RoboCop. Now, RoboCop to me seems weird because it's one of those franchises that just seemed to build itself up from such an obvious product of the 80s that's clearly designed to sell toys, but at the same time they managed to make a really big franchise and people really seem to love RoboCop. So the original one, the one that I've got here, is from 1987, and it apparently did so well that it spawned two sequels, one in 1990 and one in 1993, with to varying degrees of success, a cartoon series, because every movie in the 1980s had to have a cartoon series, and a reboot in 2014 starring Joel Kinnaman that, from what I understand, didn't do so well. Now, I know everyone knows the story of RoboCop, but I'm going to go over it a little bit just to get everyone up to date. You got this. It's in the not too distant future, and it's become rather a dystopian future with one big corporation named OCP, or Omni Consumer Products. Now, they have created. Well, they've created a lot of stuff, and what they basically say to the police is that if you allow us to work on certain parts of the city and turn them from a dystopia into a utopia, then we'll give you some of our products and some of our robots to help make your jobs easier. And one of the first things they offer is the ED-209, with a robot that can serve to make their job easier, but it's got a bit of a glitch in that it seems to be overly blood hungry. When they try and demonstrate with one of their team, it said, "Put your gun down." He throws the gun down on the floor, and they're like, "Right, you put the gun down," and it doesn't seem to recognize it. But anyway, that's headed by a man named Dick Jones, played by Ronnie Cox. However, another man at the company named Bob Morton, played by Miguel Ferrer, has another idea. Now, there's this cop who's just arrived in the... Oh, God. The guy's just arrived in Detroit named Alex Murphy, played by Peter Weller. And he is a cop. He is signed up with another cop named Anne Lewis, played by Nancy Allen, and during one of their first cases together, Murphy gets shot by a gang. He gets shot repeatedly before he is eventually killed by the head of the gang. And while he's rushed to a hospital, he is pronounced dead. However, OCP says that they can repair him. So they take various parts of him and manages to sew him together into Bob Morton's project and basically turn him into a RoboCop. Basically, he's designed to fight for justice and, well, you know the likes of it. Now, looking behind the whole, even though it's clearly a product of the 1980s to sell toys, it is still, I admit, a very good film. I only really have two small problems with it, but I'll get to those. I mean, it's still distinctly 80s, but at the same time, you could definitely see it working today. They never exactly state when it's set. Or at least I don't think so. I mean, we know it's a slightly dystopian future, but they still play it really well, and it's like it could be played anywhere. I do love the smaller moments, like when he confronts one of the gang members at a gas station. The gang member's like, "No, you're dead." He's recognizing him, and I will admit, when he gets towards the end with fighting off some of the gang members, it does still hold some comedy moments, but also some really gritty moments. I mean, like with the gang member who tries to run him down, but then ends up crashing into a vat of toxic waste. I'm like, okay, according to 80s logic, this will either kill him or it will turn him into a hideous mutant. And in a way, it ends up doing both. And it ends up, of course, with Murphy and Lewis trying to work together as RoboCop and Lewis to try and figure out a way to stop the criminals and ultimately figure out what's going on, with the ultimate bad guy revealed to be Dick Jones, Ronnie Cox, as I said earlier. And I do love one moment right at the end of the film where he bursts in and he uploads evidence showing Dick Jones as the murderer, but his programming forbids him from arresting Jones. So Jones tries to escape with a helicopter. He's like, "No, I'm leaving with his hostage." Which one the hostage went, "Jones, you're fired." And RoboCop just goes, "Thank you very much," before proceeding to shoot him. Which, that's comedy, but you know what? For me, that works. I mean, as I said, I only really have two small problems with the film. One is the CGI used on the ED-209 is rather bad. I mean, I was watching it through with a family member, and they said the CGI was rather bad. I was like, "Is it CGI? It looks a bit like an early kind of clumsy version of stop motion." But yeah, looking rather carefully at it, it is CGI, and when it gets defeated by a set of stairs, that's kind of overly humorous, but you're just thinking, "Oh, come on. Really?" My other small complaint is that throughout the film there are various kind of news reports with two anchors. And you know what? That's fair enough. They are possibly meant to build up this is a dystopian future and there is crime everywhere. And they do build up the police strike later on, which is pretty good. But there's a lot of stuff they can reveal before they get onto the events of the film that is never really brought up. Like, towards the start of the film, they say that certain countries are having problems with nuclear confrontation, French nuclear missiles. And I'm just like, does this fit into the story? But it never really brought up. I mean, I guess it's that they're trying to build up this is a dystopian future, but I don't know. I just kind of feel they could have woven those into the story a little bit more. But you know what? It's still an 80s classic, and I urge you, if you haven't seen RoboCop, you're missing out. I mean, I was warned by family members that this is a pretty gory film, and I will admit it is overly kind of action packed and bloody in places. But you know what? Once you're allowed to see it, or once you get to see it, give the original RoboCop a chance. Don't go immediately for the 2014 version. I will admit it is a pretty good film, and I will admit I do see why it's one of the 80s classics. So that's my quick thoughts on RoboCop. Anyway, until next time, see ya.